One of the things you did was to abandon all of the previous expectations of your life, and I love that the only thing you held on to was getting dressed once a day.
It's important to emphasize carving out some alone time. It might not be ideal.
Like me eating dinner in the closet?
Hadley, this is so funny. Lost one sense of humor last seen and found returned to the quarantine. Thanks, the management.
I thought it was hilarious. And I don't know if anybody else will, but it made me happy. So make messy, imperfect art. Run around barefoot in the rain. Get yourself a hammock and sway in the breeze, even if, especially if your kids don't want to do those things with you.
It's the little things, right, Mom?
Right, Hadley?
Welcome to Chasing Chaos with Sheila Hamilton. Tonight's guest, novelist and award-winning journalist Laura Stanfill and her daughter Hadley. Now, please welcome your host, Sheila Hamilton.
Hello, and welcome to Chasing Chaos. I'm your host, Sheila Hamilton, and we're here to provide well-being tools, resources, and genuine answers to take command of your life. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest as she embodies through her books, Instagram posts, and fiery optimism what our team calls 𝗖𝗿𝗄𝗏. It's a combination of love and levity, and it's clear 𝗖𝗏𝗏 has played a critical role for her family this past year. There's no guidebook for parenting during a pandemic, and sheltering at home means being yourself in front of your kids all day, every day, without the release of school or the office. Our guest penned Sad House as one mother's guide to stumbling through a season of loss with creativity, hope, and humor. She's the publisher of Forest Avenue Press, and Publishers Weekly named her a 2017 Star Watch honoree. Please welcome community builder, novelist, and award-winning journalist Laura Stanfill and her daughter Hadley. It's so good to see you both. And before we jump into the very deep stuff, I want to share one of your very funny Instagram posts. I love it so much because this past year has been so maddening on so many levels, and I think the drawing captures our quest for answers. So my question to you both is, who is this emergency worm?
As you can see, Emergency Worm is a tiny worm superhero. She likes to travel through the hospital by a zip line, and when she does so, she wears a helmet for safety, and she helps people who are sick. And I think my youngest daughter, Tracy, came up with it because she was trying to get her arms around the pandemic and understand what it means to hurt and want to have a narrative about how to help people.
Before COVID, what was your day-to-day sense of life like?
Well, it was super busy. I have a great husband. I have 2 kids. At the time, we had 5 guinea pigs. And I run my own publishing company and mentor a lot of writers. I never stopped. I just kept going and going and going to the point that my friends commented that it seemed like I ran out of batteries.
When the pandemic hit, what changed for you?
Right before lockdown, I realized that life was changing for good because my author, 𝗄𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏, called me up and said, I think we need to cancel my Powell's event. She was supposed to speak at the bookstore for her debut novel, and she had terminal cancer. Her book was due to launch in May, and we worked with the Powell's team to make sure we could get her a microphone in March. On March 15th, she was supposed to speak. And a few days before, as the headlines of COVID were taking over and everybody was worrying and wondering and trying to make plans, she called me and said, I don't want people to get sick. I don't want them to come to my event and get sick. We didn't, at that time, know about super spreaders or have that kind of language in our lives, but she feared for everyone else. And I said, well, I'm also worried about you and your health. And she said, well, I'm really worried about everybody else. So I put in the email to cancel with Jeremy at Powell's, and then I got in my car and I drove downtown to the store, and they had her name up on the marquee, and I took a picture, and I knew that was as close as she would get to fulfilling her dream as a debut novelist. And sure enough, she passed in June, so she didn't get a chance to speak in public.
It's so powerful to cope with any difficulty, but I think that you embody it in the zine Sad House. So what was the spark that led you to write it?
My best friend, Priya, got sick with COVID and passed in April. We had met in 5th grade. We've known each other our whole lives. She's always been there for me. And I think I decided to write the story of her and the story of our family grief going through losing her because there were so many big international newspaper headlines about her. And they didn't tell the story of her. They told the story of how she died. And I wanted to tell the story of her.
Her death was quite early in the pandemic. How did you learn that she was battling COVID-19?
She texted me and told me that the whole family was sick, but she was particularly worried about her father, who was having trouble breathing, and they had just taken him to the emergency room. That was the last text I got from her. She was taken to the emergency room soon thereafter, and she died on April 13th, and he passed on April 21st. They were both doctors, and they both had worked at the hospital where they passed.
Laura, in what ways did Priya influence you so deeply?
She just exuded love and appreciation for other people. She was helping patients from her hospital bed. That's the kind of person she was. And she treated her best friends like family. She called me her sister, and her other best friends the same.
She sounds like a wonderful human. I want to pull a quote from Sad House, if you don't mind. You say about grieving while quarantining at home, there is no such thing as private when sheltering in place. Even locking myself in the bathroom doesn't work for long. The girls can sense my emotion flooding through the house. It's an unmistakable perfume, grief. I was so struck by how unmoored grief is and how unpredictable it must have been for you, because you're attempting to lead this very busy life and with all of these demands, and grief just isn't going to put you on a timeline.
That's so true. I just didn't know what to expect. I'd never lost a close friend before. And the waves of grief were just crashing one after the other at unexpected times. I'm on a school board at a local charter school, and I cried during school board because it just would catch up to me. I would see other people on the screen. I cried a lot at writing group. I finally left my writing group because it was too much to see these people I still love and admire on a screen, and to think about how much our society has changed.
Yeah. Hadley, what was it like for you to see your Energizer Bunny mom brought to her knees by this kind of loss in her life?
It was really weird. And I could just sense that something was going on with her.
I think one of the things that's so wonderful about your relationship together is that you two almost seem like you're in sync. Did it cause you to be quite out of sync with your mom, have her grieving like that?
Yeah, most of the time I kept my distance, but sometimes I just sat there and snuggled with her and ended up getting cried on.
Oh, well, I think the beauty of this experience and the way you share it, Laura, in Sad House is that one of the things you did was to abandon all of the previous expectations of your life. And I love that the only thing you held on to was getting dressed once a day. There's an unexpected benefit to sheltering at home. I don't have to perform social greetings or meet expectations of what a 40-something-year-old should wear or do. As a neurodivergent person, this carries a sense of relief, a loosening of expectations. It's okay to feel too much right now. I want you to talk a little bit more about that unexpected freedom, Laura.
In 2014, I fell on the ice and got a traumatic brain injury, and all of my ability to perform socially just fell for about a year. And when I started feeling better and rehab helped, I started picking up all those scripts again and those social niceties. And I started saying yes again to everything, because I'm really good at saying yes and not as good at boundaries. So when the pandemic came, it was like a second reset switch where I got to drop everything again. And now I have the time and energy to be a lot more selective about which pieces I pick back up, that yes, I will do this. And I can also say no.
I think there's going to be also sort of decades of study on families who had to work at home and be at home and homeschool at home. And you and your mom are both neurodivergent, or what some people might characterize as highly functioning and excessively intelligent autism. So how much stress was there on you because of the unique nature of your brain?
In some ways, it works out well because we understand each other so well, but I'm very sensitive to noise, and Hadley is quite loud almost all of the time. And in fact, both of my girls love sharing monologues. They have constant monologues running in the background of things, and I have to often ask, do you want me to listen to that? I'm not actually listening to that. So we've had to figure out coping mechanisms like that. Hadley and I both really thrive with a lot of stuff around us. We like our things we love all nested around us, and we don't have to pretend otherwise because nobody's coming in our house. It doesn't matter.
I want to pull another quote from Sad House, Laura, if it's okay. To establish more real world moments, I've taken to hiding her, and you're talking about your younger daughter, Tracy's computer and claiming it's gone out for sushi. Her computer gets terribly hungry. It's sad about all the time it spends alone in the house, and it really wants avocado rolls. When Tracy's computer goes out for sushi, we read, we make comics, we paint, we run circles in the yard pretending to be kittens. It doesn't matter if she doesn't turn in all of her assignments. How did you come up with this brilliant method of minimizing her screen time?
Just storytelling. I realized that every time I said no and time is up and she would say yes, we would get into that duality. And I got bored of it, honestly. It was just so boring. And I'm sure a lot of parents have had that experience with tech boundaries during the pandemic too, especially those of us who are doing distance learning. So school equals computer.
Yeah.
So I just decided one day to just sneak away and take her computer and say it was going out for sushi. Sometimes I'll detail what meals it has, and maybe it has to stop by the pet store to get some guinea pig food on the way home. And she rolls her eyes and gets super frustrated. But it takes out the anger, and it takes out the sense of conflict between us. And she's very willing to engage in other acts of storytelling while her computer's out for sushi.
I was really moved, Laura, by the influence of everyday art projects and helping you guys move through this grief. And you instinctively began to do what other people were collectively doing, baking bread and painting and drawing. And these few lines from Sad House connected with me so much. Each piece of work feels close to joy, or at least as close as I can get within the fog of grief. I always thought you had to make something perfect to be proud of it, but mid-crisis, I am letting that go. It doesn't have to be great art or cake for me to feel better during and after the making. So how does a perfectionist let go of this quest?
Reconnecting with my sense of play. That's really why. I stopped tying my achievements to a sense of goal or expectation, and I just got messy.
Before COVID, did you consider yourself an artist?
No, I've always made art, but I've never used that label for myself. The New York Times published one of my pieces this summer, and I realized that I can't not call myself an artist.
I'm going to share them here with our audience because I think they're so funny and touching. Will one of you please share the inspiration between this holiday card design that's on your Instagram page?
Sure. I decided to draw handmade cards, and so everyone got a slightly different card, and this one turned out strange, imperfect. My husband's arm is awkward, so I wrote that into the holiday message.
This next one is called Ready for the Spotlight.
I own that dress and I own those boots, and I have nowhere to wear them.
I want to move on to the pessimistic beer. It's called the Dankest Hour Pale Ale.
It's a real beer from Pelican Brewing here in Oregon, and we drank a lot of it, especially early on in the pandemic. So people who didn't get holiday cards got handmade zines from me. And so that's a page of a little drawn zine about things that made me happy.
I think moms everywhere will relate to She Could Nap Anywhere. She's sideways on a streetcar, it appears.
I've fallen asleep in the randomest spots.
What about I Wish This Were a Pandemic?
It would be amazing.
Have you seen my poodle? Reminded me of me because I've not been able to get my hair cut.
I thought it was hilarious. And I don't know if anybody else will, but it made me happy. So.
I do. I hadn't seen these before, and I've just been loving them. Quarantine poster, Hadley, this is so funny. Lost one sense of humor last seen and found returned to the quarantine. Thanks, the management.
So we kind of have like an inside joke about the management. If someone wants to complain about something and no one wants to talk to you about it, we just like pretend to call up the phone. My mom put this on my door the day before I turned 13. So.
Oh, I guess that was an inside message to you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hello, Oregonians. Learn where and when to get your COVID-19 vaccine. Visit covidvaccine.oregon.gov, or you can easily text or email today. Now, back to Chasing Chaos.
I want to know first, how will you remember this year together?
I'll remember it being intense and messy, but also beautiful with pockets of joy.
What aspects do you hope that you'll hang on to, or like new habits that will actually work for your mental health?
My boundaries are a lot tighter now. Priya's last text message to me said, please stay safe and keep your family safe right now. So there's been no question. No, we're not going out for dining. No, we're not doing anything besides taking care of ourselves and our houses. And I just hope I can continue to recognize that no is an okay word to say.
Did you feel like you had moments where you didn't know whether or not your mental health was able to get stronger or weaker?
Absolutely. But I do feel like we're stronger as a family because we've learned how to persevere and we've had to figure it out. There's no choice. We can't walk away. Well, we can walk into the next room, but we're really stuck together even when we're having hard times.
We'll be right back with more Chasing Chaos after this brief message.
Hi, I'm Kathleen and I'm a volunteer at 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗵𝗁. 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗵𝗁 is a local nonprofit that provides free mental health support groups, classes, and more delivered by peers with lived mental health experiences. If you struggle with your mental health, or if you love someone who struggles with theirs, you can find free support and a welcoming community at 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗵𝗁. We believe that recovery is possible. Check out our website to learn more about our services, and please donate or volunteer so we can help everyone in our community.
If you would provide for us 5 tips, just 5 takeaways of what you learned about parenting during a pandemic, I would be so happy.
It's Laura's 5 tips. Today, parenting during a pandemic.
1, rediscover your sense of play. Make messy, imperfect art. Run around barefoot in the rain. Get yourself a hammock and sway in the breeze, especially if your kids don't want to do those things with you.
Mom, I do love spending time with you, but I do have a life.
Sometimes, as adults, we get so caught up in acting, adults, that we miss out on the fun.
True.
And as parents, when we engage in play, it's often in relationship to our children to entertain them. What kind of play can you engage in as an adult just for you? Not because it's on your to-do list, but because you deserve to have fun too.
When you're happy, I'm happy, Mom.
2, be honest. If you feel something really intensely and try to hide it, your children will start making up stories of their own about why and possibly taking it personally.
It drives me nuts when I can't understand what you're feeling.
If you can come up with some age-appropriate language, even if it's just, I'm feeling sad today, you empower your children and set the stage for them to talk openly about their feelings. 3, insist on alone time for everyone. In the before times, we all had to work hard on family togetherness, coming up with activities and ideas that would appeal to all of us.
We like really different things.
And it's important to emphasize carving out some alone time. It might not be ideal.
Like me eating dinner in the closet?
It doesn't matter how small the space is or how much time you get, just that you have regular breaks from each other. 4, use stories in your parenting. I'm not talking about when I was your age stories, but creating narratives. If a younger child's really lonely, make up a storyline for a stuffed animal and let it go on improbable adventures.
Like chicken? She likes astronomy textbooks. It's a bit awkward.
We also tell stories about pre-pandemic life so we can talk about what we miss. There's so much we can't do right now, and it's good to acknowledge that. 5, look closely. We've all picked up that skill this year with our lives being so limited. We see what's here with a fresh perspective. A piece of cardboard isn't just recycling, it's a potential painting project.
I can make anything into art.
You just have to reframe how you see things.
Like magic.
We even enjoy the days when the truck comes to pump out the neighbor's porta potty.
It's the little things, right, Mom?
Right, Hadley?
I'm going to have to catch my breath here for a minute, you guys. That was so amazing. You're just such a team and so hopeful for the rest of the families that are listening and watching and still hoping we can get to the end of this marathon we're running together. Hadley and Laura, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting us.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Chasing Chaos and my conversation with the amazing Laura and Hadley. Follow Laura and Hadley's adventures on Instagram at Forest Avenue Press, and pick up a copy of Sad House, Parenting, Grief, and Creativity During the Coronavirus Crisis at microcosmpublishing.com. Tune in next time to hear more gritty stories and find genuine answers on your path to well-being. I'm your host, Sheila Hamilton, and I hope you stay strong.
Join us next month to learn how musician, actor, playwright, and real-life supernova Storm Large met isolation and loneliness head-on. See the schedule at 𝗂𝗄𝗃.me. Take an even deeper dive into mental health while building a toolbox for better living in the hit podcast Beyond Well with Sheila Hamilton. Listen now on iTunes and Spotify. Get the latest tools and resources to manage your well-being, plus learn how to keep safe, get tested, and where to be immunized for COVID. Visit NAMICC.org. We hope you'll share this episode of Chasing Chaos with your friends. Tag your post with Chasing Chaos. And while you're still with us, remember, you can help others retake command of their lives. Make a donation to fund NAMI's life-changing classes, support groups, and programs. Every dollar makes an impact. Just click the Facebook donate button or visit NAMICC.org/chasingchaos. Thanks again for watching. Stay strong.